It truly, he looked like a doll to me I'm like, wow, that's like a spray-on tan. Hi, I'm Teresa. Welcome to Cocoon Cast, where we deep dive into movies and discuss all things cinema.
Hi, I'm Rebecca. We'll be discussing the new movie Barbie, as well as Haunted Mansion. We also have some snappy Hollywood news. Want to work in town right now? There's a waiver for that.
Let's get started. Barbie is living her best life, but when she starts to notice unexplainable changes in her world, it becomes clear that the only place to get answers is in our world. With her friend Ken tagging along for the journey, Barbie tries to reconcile what she believes about her life versus the real world outside of Barbie Land. Rebecca, talk to me about why you chose this movie.
I chose this movie because everyone won't stop talking about this movie. From the first moment Margot Robbie was announced as the Barbie, Greta Gerwig was announced as the director, Ryan Gosling was announced as Ken, everything kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Everything just created this excitement that threatened to take over the box office. And I was really curious to see how this was going to turn out. I've never been the biggest Barbie fan.
No, you're lying.
I watched a few of the movies growing up. I had some Barbie dolls. I found other toys more exciting for me. But the culture around Barbie is still one that's very effective around how we see ourselves in terms of roles and societal expectations. So I wanted to see how that's going to translate to a movie, especially when Gerwig promised kind of a postmodern glimpse of Barbie. This movie was marketed literally with a tagline of, if you like Barbie, this movie's for you. If you don't like Barbie, this movie's still for you.
So in other words, everybody should love this movie.
Everyone and every Barbie should love this movie.
Well, and I laugh because you're saying I wasn't a big Barbie fan. However, you did have a blue-haired alternate Barbie doll, not necessarily from Mattel, but you had dolls. You had a dream house.
I did. I was very lucky.
I remember you actually painted your dream house different colors. I think it had pink and green, and somehow it came out blue and some other color.
I literally took some nail polish and painted the dream house because I figured that would work the best.
Well, and it's funny too because I grew up loving Barbies. I wasn't an overly fluffy girl, but I had a dream house. My grandmother bought me the dream house, the big jumbo one my parents were trying to figure out what in the world to do with. And I played with Barbie. So when the Barbie movie was announced, I actually was excited. And the look, that's exciting.
You were so much more excited than I was.
And part of why I was excited because Margaret Robbie, or Robbie, as she's also known as, she's a wonderful actress, and she feels like Barbie. Her energy, her excitement, her enthusiasm. I thought this could be great. And then, as we talked about, Greta Gerwig is the director. She did Lady Bird. Loved Lady Bird.
You love Lady Bird.
I love your dad and I actually both loved.
I love Saoirse. Saoirse was really good in that movie.
Well, and Little Women. You liked Little Women.
Yes, I love Little Women. That was an excellent adaptation. I love Greta's film, Frances Ha. That's probably still my favorite film of hers.
Correct. So it had the and Margaret Robbie's production company had a big hand in this.
Yes, that's correct.
The script, we hadn't seen the script, but I was curious in terms of how can you make a Barbie movie that's relatable to, like you said, everyone, right? If you love Barbie, if you don't love Barbie. When we went to see the movie, it's just like a sea of pink.
And this is on a Monday night. Middle
Evening.
of summer.
Yes.
Nothing going on. And the theater is packed. Even today, when we went to go see Haunted Mansion, the theater is still packed. It's still a sea of pink.
It was. And it was hilarious, right? Because we're walking in, people are wearing pink. And you know where they're going. They're not coming to see Haunted Mansion. They're walking in to see Barbie. So I was curious, and Ryan Gosling is Ken, a very tanned and buffed Ken. He looked like a doll to me I'm like, wow, that's like a spray-on tan. And so you just go, how could this go right? But how could this go wrong? Well, I think it had the potential to go a little off the rails crazy. But to me, I was excited about it. Mm-hmm. And it really was an energetic, fun movie and much deeper than I thought it would be.
Yeah, I was really excited to see Noah Baraka as Greta's writing partner for this film. Noah and Greta have been together many number of years. Sure. They've also worked on a couple other films, and I particularly enjoy Noah's writing. So I was really curious to see how they would take Barbie in a post-Lego movie world.
Oh, that's an interesting phrase. Instead of a postmodern phrase, it's a post-Lego world. I guess when you're looking at toys, it's, you know, we mark them according to Hot Wheels. It's like a post-Hot Wheel world or something. That was funny. And I appreciated the movie was well cast in my mind.
Yes.
Do you agree with that?
I totally agree. It was really cool seeing all these different actors and actresses in these little bit Barbie parts that I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so-and-so. It was really cool to see like Barbie's history really spotlighted in this film.
Well, and that's a great point because there is a lot of history and trivia. Everything is pink, truly. Everything is pink.
And everything's fair game too. They even have Magic Earring Ken show up as a cameo.
Well, and I think that's the part that was hilarious because the detailing was hilarious. So instead of LAX, they were at BAX, right? Barbie, International Airport. There's bees everywhere on the carpet, and it just, and everyone's Barbie.
Everyone.
Right. You think about
except for
for the Kens.
Yes.
Well, there's Midge. Oh, there's Midge.
The infamous Midge.
The infamous Midge, and you know the story of Midge, right?
Yes, I'd heard the story, and then
let's tell our cinema community. Let's talk about the story of Midge doll.
So Midge was one of Barbie's friends, and in the early 2000s, they had introduced a pregnant Midge.
With a detractable baby. Apparently, the baby comes out and,
I don't remember this. This is one of the few things that it's escaped my memory on this.
Well, I guess that would be in your time. I'm thinking that's beyond my time. I wasn't,
The only Midge I remember is the one that you got me with just the bathing suit. That's the only one I remember.
Okay. Well, I would have been happy to buy you the pregnant Midge because, hey, that's a reality of life. But they had her, and there, of course, was the commentary that she's pregnant, and she was her neighbor. She wasn't in the dream house. She was off to the side, and they would be like, oh, hi, Midge. And then, so it was making a comment about that there was a story about that. Everybody else was Barbie. There was a President Barbie.
Mm-hmm, that's correct.
Kate McKinnon played the weird Barbie.
I loved Kate McKinnon. She was great in this.
That's a whole story of a weird Barbie. There's a Dr. Barbie, Writer Barbie, right? Judge Barbie. And then the Kens. Everyone's a Ken. Except for Alan. Everything.
Yeah.
And then Alan, who's Midge's husband back in the day.
Well, yeah. And so I think that was kind of winked and nodded to. But it was kind of interesting.
And I loved it because there was all the Kens and stereotypical Ken or beach Ken, tourist Ken. Oh, Ken made like a mermaid.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
John
right?
Cena does
Merman. I'm sorry, Merman.
John Cena
Ken.
does a really fantastic job as Merman Ken.
And then there's Sugar Daddy Ken.
Oh gosh, yeah, that was weird.
In some of these you can see how they didn't quite make it to prime time.
No.
However, I would say the costuming was fabulous. The set design was so fun.
It didn't feel overwhelming. That was the big thing I was concerned about. For a movie that caused a global shortage on the color pink that they were using.
Wow.
Yeah, no,
Holy
it was
moly.
big. I was kind of worried that they were just throwing in some gimmicks. So people were like, okay, let's just see how this goes. But you want to talk committed to the bit?
Committed to the bit.
Everyone is committed to the bit in this movie. And I want to spotlight Ryan Gosling as being particularly committed to the bit.
Oh, and here's the thing. The movie had energy to it. And obviously the audience, right? I mean, people, and there are men in this movie. So it's not sea of pink women. There are men, there are teenagers, people my age, people your age.
There's a wide variety of emotional range discussed in this movie. It's not particularly, this is only Barbie's world. The Kens get talked about too. And
the Kens have a role.
They're very active in this movie.
They're very active. You see the movie, you will know exactly what Rebecca is talking about. We will do no spoilers, but they are active in this role. That's hilarious. That's true.
Well, we get a little bit in the trailer. They're doing the dance number. The dance number is really well. There's all these little callbacks. I know the big one that's been discussed has been the 2001 Space Odyssey, but there's all these other little moments that are just so much fun.
Well, and you're not a Barbie fan particularly. No. You had fun.
I did have fun.
Yeah, it's the summer movie, which I understand that.
This movie is clearing Oppenheimer at the box office right now. They're almost neck and neck in certain ways, but there is definitely a noticeable gap.
Well, but let's talk about it. It was a fun summer movie, but it was more serious at parts. There were actually some very serious discussions and existential crisis.
Existential,
yes, exactly. Ken's enough. We've learned this from the clothing that is being sold on his behalf.
I think the thing that I was really pleasantly surprised was that they went there.
They
didn't have to go there.
They did not.
But they went there. And I'm really happy they took that risk. Because here's Barbie. Here's something that most people have really positive memories of that kind of falls in line with a certain vision that you're like, you could do anything.
Well, that's the goal, correct? Judge, lawyer, president, astronaut.
But you can make this really fluffy Barbie movie, pun not intended.
Correct.
You can make this really fluffy Barbie movie and coast on it. And everybody would be like, oh, cool, it's going to make a bunch of money. But Gerwig goes, no, I want to use this to talk about something. And I think it's really interesting to see so many people come out of the theater and say, this movie resonated with me in a way another film might not have.
And I heard that from multiple people that I spoke with after seeing the movie. And that was what I heard most often was that movie spoke for me, or that's how I felt, or one of the best comments I heard was from someone who said, I felt heard.
Yes.
And honestly, as a woman, I heard so many different things just for myself. And I'm like, I've heard that before. Someone has said that to me. Oh my goodness. It's Greta's reading my mail as I was growing up. So many of these things as a woman I've heard.
Well, even from a more masculine perspective,
Correct.
There were still points of view demonstrated
Yes.
that we might not necessarily hear in a mass media franchise.
That's true. It's taking a risk. This is as you said, this is a sacred icon. People are very attached to their Barbies or their memories of Barbies as they may be. And to actually take this further and to say, what would it be like if? Mm-hmm. And the only thought we would say around that is if Barbie were to leave Barbie Land, what would that look like? How would that be received from the rest of the world? How would she change?
And I like that it's a bit more mature. This movie got a PG-13
That
rating.
is correct. It is PG.
But to me, it's a very hard PG-13. There's some intense stuff talked about from an emotional perspective.
Correct.
That I think a more mature audience would appreciate and understand instead of just not losing the plot per se, but losing the ability for it to impact the audience.
Well, and there are some innuendos. Language was creatively masked, I would say, on one situation. So I think that's the part where it was a clean movie, if you will, not a lot of, F-bombs and,
But
things.
if you're a parent and you bring a younger kid to this, you're definitely going to have to be doing some explaining.
Oh, some huge discussions. So I think truly understanding the PG-13 rating, not all Barbie fans are mature enough to hear or to receive or to have discussions. So do we have any questions from the box?
Teresa, you mentioned you were surprised at the depth of the dialogue of this movie. Do you think this added or detracted from the movie?
I think it added to the movie. And I think there's a lot of goodwill with Barbie. And I also think, as you said, it can be considered fluffy. So the fact that it added greater depth, I think, it made the movie more enjoyable for me. Because had it just been a fun movie with a lot of fluff, I don't think I would be as enthusiastic about it. And I think I actually would have been disappointed based on the actor, the director, the writing. I think I would have been disappointed had they taken the Barbie movie and just made it fluffy. I can't think of another word.
I agree. I think that it would have been almost a disservice to the creative team had they not taken the risk. And I want to hear from our cinema community too I want you to comment below. Do you think this should have been lighter? Do you think they should have gone heavier? Or do you think it's actually pretty good the way that it is right now?
Rebecca, on a scale 1 to 5, the moths are back, the moths are back. 1 to 5. Where do your moths land this week?
My moths are landing at a 3.5.
Wow. Okay. So what's your number one reason that it's a 3.5?
There's some things that didn't land for me as well as I think they could have landed. And I think the movie kind of lost something in that.
Okay. I would give it actually a 4 moths. I actually kind of lean toward a 4.5, but I would say it's a solid 4 for me because of the acting. The directing was really great. And it was a mix of a lot of different things. And I think first of all, take Barbie along with taking Barbie and having humor and having music. And it hit all of the right notes. So I would say it's a solid 4. Hey, Rebecca, it's that time to remind our cinema community who we are not sponsored by this week.
Oh, man, who are we not sponsored by?
This week, we are not sponsored by Mattel. Mattel, the company who invented Barbie. And we're doing a Barbie review.
This would be an awesome opportunity for them to sponsor us.
And do you think they're sponsoring us?
Wait, no.
No. And Barbie has this long history with Mattel. And Mattel, okay. Do you know about Mattel? Let me tell you about Mattel. So Mattel has all these different companies, but they are known for Hot Wheels. You know what Hot Wheels are? Yes, Hot Wheels. And they actually bought like Uno a while back.
Okay, that I did not know. That's weird.
Yeah, no. So they've done a lot. So let's talk about this. Fisher Price. They even bought Fisher Price.
No company safe.
No,
They're like the Disney
they're
of
actually
toy companies
not.
now.
They bought American Girls. Remember the Polly Pockets, the little.
Oh yeah, I remember those. You never let me buy those.
Well, you'd lose them. The cat would eat them. People like them, but nobody. Well, I guess people buy them. Mattel bought them. They like them, but yeah. So Mattel, company among companies. What do you think their net worth is?
Probably like $5 billion.
Oh my! Woo! You're good. $5,043,000,000 in 2022. Employees, as of 2022, they have 33,900. So not quite 34,000.
Oh, okay.
They're hovering
they're this
close. 33,000. Southern California. They have a presence in 35 countries. Or no, that's not true. Presence in 35 territories. Products sold in 150 countries.
Wow.
They've been around forever, right? They've started, when did they start? Back in the day. 1945 in a garage. All good businesses apparently start in garages.
Especially California garages.
I know, and it is Southern California garage. What are the odds? So think about this. So they started off making picture frames. And then they would take the little scraps from it's kind of like back with, the Kingsford coal, everybody's doing something with wood scraps. So they took the wood scraps and then they started making Barbie houses. Not houses. I'm sorry. They started making Barbie furniture before the house. So they made the furniture before the house, which is kind of interesting to me.
That's kind of interesting because then it's like it allows you to use your imagination. I'm imagining them sponsoring us right now, but it's not working.
Right? We'll use their furniture. If this chair was made from Mattel, would they sponsor us?
No.
Probably still no. No, they wouldn't. So let's talk about Barbie because we're talking about Barbie and they still don't want to sponsor us even though we're talking about their woman, their product. So 1959, first Barbie shows up on the market. She's there. And then the one that drives dad crazy. Mattel also came up with Chatty Cathy.
Oh.
1960. The little pull string, little blah, blah, blah. That's the one. Yep. No, I know. You love her, you hate her.
Hate her.
I never had her, but Mattel loved her. Apparently, they love Chatty Cathy more than they do us because they made her and they, sold her and they won't sponsor
Get Chatty
us.
Cathy to review a Barbie movie.
Tell me about it. So Barbie's hanging out, 1959, doing, her thing. Then the great Ken doll shows up in 1961.
I can't believe it only took them 2 years to come up with
Well,
10.
she was single. You know, she's living the life, hanging out in her with her Mattel furniture without a house. You know, this is before she had the dream house. So she's hanging out, and then 1962, she marries Ken, or she hangs out with Ken. However this looks, right? She's with Ken. Astronaut Barbie, 1962, which you realize nobody on the moon, nothing. Barbie made it on the moon first.
Wow.
She is a progressive woman, and yet no. So you think about it, Mattel is quite the company. They introduced Christie, 1968. Barbie's African American friend. What's so great about that? First African American doll on the scene, which is terrific. Then we talked about Midge, right? Midge comes out in 73. She's married to Alan, and then all of a sudden she disappeared. And then I guess she came back again pregnant, but she had a baby, so her and Alan were hanging out before that. Yeah, so reintroduced Midge. How exciting is that? And Alan apparently is Ken's best friend because in the Mattel world, everybody's all interconnected, just like the Barbie movie. So this company, huge, big, profitable, very profitable, won't sponsor Cocoon Cast.
Yep, they won't sponsor us.
They won't sponsor us. Can't believe it. So Mattel, we love your product. Obviously, we love your movie. We love all things Barbie. Although we're not wearing pink today, maybe that would have helped.
No, I think we should have thought of this. I'm wearing pink lipstick.
Yes,
That kind of counts.
Exactly. Mattel, she's wearing pink lipstick, but no sponsorship.
Alas, no.
So enjoy your Barbies. Thanks, Mattel.
If you enjoyed our review on Barbie, please like, which helps more reviewers find our cinema community, and subscribe so you don't miss our upcoming reviews, and please share with your friends. And now for our second movie review, Haunted Mansion. Moving to a new house can be scary, but Gabby and her son, Travis, discover that their new house is haunted with ghosts of residents past and decide to seek help in the form of a group of supernatural experts. With each twist and turn, the house reveals its secrets, and it's not about to leave those who enter it unchanged. Okay, Teresa, why did you choose this movie for our cinema community today?
I chose this movie because I actually like the Haunted Mansion ride at Disneyland. That is the first ride I remember hearing about from my brother. Well, I have two brothers, but my middle brother is 4.5 years older than I am. He went to Disneyland when he was pretty young, and he came back talking about the Haunted Mansion. He actually had a Haunted Mansion coloring book that I could not color in. I think his exact words were, "Don't touch it, don't look at it," because it was on our community bookshelf. So, of course, I became intrigued. Got a little bit older, went to Disneyland. For me, it's funny because it was a ride, but when they said, hey, we're going to do a movie, because I remember the Eddie Murphy one back in 2003,
Yeah.
little less enthusiastic at that point. But to me, the Haunted Mansion feels more like a movie than a ride anyway. So when they said, hey, it's how do you ride in a house, right? It's just it's like, let's go through the spooky house. Oh, admittedly, it's a fun ride. But when they say, hey, it's a movie, I'm like, okay, that makes sense. They're going to go through the house. They're going to do something. People are going to talk about it. They're going to tell us the backstory. Trust me, you don't get a whole backstory in a coloring book. So I'm looking for this. Plus, it's a great summer movie. Well cast. Like the cast, actually. And I thought maybe it'll fill in some of the dots for me. Maybe it'll start to make a little bit more sense. So I was up and ready to go for this one. How about you?
I'm a huge Dune buggy. It's a Haunted Mansion fan, for those of you who don't know.
Oh my goodness. I'm like, what? I'm like, what? We're talking about Haunted Mansion. Dune buggy.
It was named after one of the websites that used to have like fan pictures and stuff.
Oh my goodness. You're talking to my brother.
Oh yeah. No,
Yes.
totally. I'm one of those people that it's one of my auxiliary special interests. I'll actually go out of my way to find out interesting facts, stories, lore, all this kind of stuff with this ride. So I was really curious to see, especially after the Eddie Murphy story was such a big hit in certain circles, that I wanted to see if they would do it better. I also wanted to see if there was going to be kind of like a Ghostbusters conundrum, whether it was going to be more supernaturally focused versus more comedically focused, especially considering that at one point Guillermo del Toro was attached to this movie. And
wow.
Yeah, he's cool.
Well, then it really probably would have been dark and mysterious. And yeah, no, I could see him doing this. I could see him directing this.
But can you see Ryan Gosling in a Guillermo del Toro movie?
No, he's spray on Ken. No, he's my beach Ken now. No, I
Wouldn't
can't
that
see
be
him.
wild though to see like?
I don't think it's Barba Mansion. I think it's Barbenheimer. I think you're confusing the two summer movies, Rebecca.
But if you think about it, in an alternate timeline, it is Barbie Mansion.
Oh, it's Barba Mansion. Okay. Oh, that's a fair point, though. So, did it feel more Ghostbustery, or what did it feel like
was
to
actually,
you?
I was really pleasantly surprised about the humor. There was a lot of winks and nods to the ride. The production design was really cool. We spotlighted this in our short, but the makeup designer for this film actually used some practical effects when it came to the prosthetics. He put some UV paints in some of the silicone appliances as well as the makeup.
Oh, right. So, it kind of, yes.
It kind of created that more spooky sense that you would see with some of the animatronics with a ride.
That's a good point. And I would say the effects were special. And you're right. Your knowledge base far exceeds mine when it comes to Haunted Mansion. And I know afterwards you'd made a comment, the bats.
Yes, there's one sequence where they go to another location that's not the mansion, but there's also still that very attentive love and care. And one of the little details that kind of got me excited that showed that the filmmakers really want to pay attention was the bats that are on like the little kind of the velvet rope that kind of separates some of the things are the same bats that you see when you go to the ride before you hop on a dune buggy.
Which is, well, okay, that makes sense. So, and you noticed that. You'd said something about the wallpaper. I noticed, for me,
The wallpaper is iconic.
The wallpaper is, and then the pictures on the wall, I did recognize those, and I know your favorite. Yes?
The cat lady. The cat lady is still my favorite.
You're correct, and I saw her, and I thought, okay, Rebecca's going to appreciate
Even the
that.
chairs, they use some of the chairs that were in the ride if you pay attention in some of the certain sequences.
Well, and I think what's funny about it is, yes, I would miss some of those things. And maybe people in our cinema community have your knowledge base, or some have maybe more mine, which is more nostalgic but enjoyable. I didn't feel like it was wink, 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 or nod, 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 you need to know this. It just felt pretty seamless. So if I knew it, it was great. If I didn't know it, I could still enjoy the movie.
It's very much added flavor text.
That's a good way to put it. I appreciate that. That's good.
So if you see the text, you can kind of incorporate it into your enjoyment, and you don't have to know it like with Mom.
Sure. No. And I'm okay not knowing it, but I love knowing it.
Yeah.
Because as you said, I'll see it and I'll be like, oh, I know about that now.
There were a couple points where I was elbowing you during the movie, and I did explain it to you afterwards.
No, and I appreciate that, because if there's a wink and a nod, sometimes it's like, ooh, I feel kind of stupid. Maybe I don't know this. But if you're going, nudging me, I'm like, oh, pay attention to that. Rebecca will tell me about that later, which is so great. And for me, I think not only was the set design fabulous, and I love a good set design, the music was pretty good.
The music was really cool. Chris Bowers, who previously worked with Justin, the director, on Dear White People, also did the music for Chevalier, which I know you had discussed that you really like the arrangements
really like
for that.
the music for that. Yes. And what a variety.
Yes. And it really captured the spirit of New Orleans. The last Haunted Mansion movie, I was terrifically disappointed with. New Orleans seemed almost kind of like a throwaway gag. It's like, why is it here? It's New Orleans. And it just felt like more respectful to the New Orleans culture.
It did. It felt very, and even just out of the gate in the beginning, it really established this is New Orleans. Yes, I would agree with that. And I also think the screenplay was a pretty smart one.
It's very funny. The writer, Katie Dippold, also wrote for Parks and Rec. Okay. The other thing that most people would know Katie's work for is the Paul Feig Ghostbusters, as well as The Heat.
Oh, interesting. That I did. Okay, that I did.
And I know you like The Heat.
Yes, that's true. Okay, no, and I know we were talking about it, that there were some. It almost felt a little improvisational. Some of the lines that they said. The different actors or actresses. I don't know if that's the case, but it was funny. Just a few little poof.
The casting really bounced off each other really well.
It isn't. There are quite a few names that people would know. Correct.
That's correct.
There is. Oh. Our buddy, right? Our buddy, the priest.
Oh yeah, Owen Wilson is
Yes.
in this. I was really excited to see Lakeith Stanfield in this.
Yes.
I've enjoyed him ever since Sorry to Bother You.
Oh, we
and
saw
The
that.
Last
That was
Black Man in San Francisco. So I was really excited to see him kind of bring his humor
Yes.
and his
yes.
sense of emotional mapping to
Well,
this.
and both of those movies are fabulous. They're more indie movies and they may not be widely accessible to many people. Hopefully they are. If you've seen them, then you know exactly what we're talking about. He's a great actor. And Chase Dillon, young
Yeah.
man, wonderful acting.
We've been getting a lot of really good kid actors this year.
Agreed. And your buddy, Rosario Dawson.
Really
You
excited.
like her?
I like her. She's cool.
Well, and there's Danny DeVito's in there.
Yes, I have a few friends in the cinema community who really get excited whenever Danny lights up a screen.
And correct. And we talked about Owen Wilson and our favorite little medium, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, she was fun. She was fun. And so, sorry, Tiffany Haddish. Right?
Tiffany Haddish was
Yes.
Tiffany
She
Haddish
was-
was cool because she was playing Tiffany Haddish, but
She
it
was
wasn't
very-
obnoxious Tiffany Haddish.
Well, and I think she has a range.
She does.
And
I
she's
think
funny.
but I also really like the fact that she did the serious character work without treating it like a joke.
And I think she has the capacity to do that. So for her to mesh the two.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's probably a challenge. If you're extremely funny, which I'm not, but if I were to hypothetically be extremely funny, I think that would be my concern is how can I play the straight part of the role? And I think she did well. And Jamie Lee Curtis, one of my favorites.
Took me a few minutes to realize it was Jamie Lee Curtis,
okay.
but once I did, I was really excited to see her in it. Dan Levy also plays a small little cameo, as well as Winona Ryder does a small little pop-up part.
Yeah, I almost missed her, actually. Yes. No. And I think that's the part where there are so many good actors. The expectation, I think, in my mind for this movie was high and really wondering. We had talked about it wasn't heavily publicized.
No.
We've seen only a few trailers for the movie. And we avoid spoilers.
Actively avoiding spoilers.
Actively.
And that was really hard for me because I wanted to see this movie as blind as I could go because I have
Yes.
such an appreciation for the source material.
Correct. No, me as well. And I would say, yeah, the acting was pretty good and the screenplay was good. It came together really well and it was much better, honestly, than I thought it was going to be.
I bumped up my initial rating about half a wing after seeing this movie. When I go into a movie, I'm not going to lie. There's a certain framework that I'm expecting it to hit.
Yes.
And if it hits above that, then it earns my esteem.
Well, and I think I agree with that. I think we would be not lying, but I think we would be a little bit on the edge of maybe not being truthful fully if we were to say, I have no thought, no expectation. Just as we're talking about, I'm anticipating this movie. Already there's goodwill, or if a good director, good actors, actresses are attached to it, we already have a certain mindset of, it's going to be good.
And our goal is to view it through your eyes. We see the trailers. Maybe once in a while we'll find a promotional article like saying, hey, check this thing out.
Yes.
But for the most part, we try to go in blind.
So when we see the movie, we actively avoid spoilers for ourselves, but also for our cinema community, because we know there's so much joy in magic in going to the movies. And if you know exactly what's going to happen, sometimes that's taken away.
That's correct.
And not always, sure. In some movies you do know how it's going to end just because you may know the story. Maybe you've read the book. Maybe you know the historical figure that this is about. But if at all possible, to go in and have enjoyment. And for me, I think that helped me enjoy the movie more as well. Rebecca, the movie was PG-13, and any thoughts about that? Or
I think this is more like a PG 11, 12-ish. It's a good gateway horror movie. I know Dad in the Box specifically had mentioned that the person next to him had a couple incidents.
No, that man jumped out of his seat. That wasn't like a woo. I mean, that was a woo. Yeah, poor dad's just like, whoa, hey.
I'm so glad I was sitting next to you.
Pretty easy to just, well, and you said kind of a horror movie. It wasn't graphic or gory, just to be real
No, but it
clear.
was definitely startling.
It was startling, and it could be unsettling and maybe scary. For younger kids, I would say it could be scary.
If your kids can handle the ride, they can handle this movie.
Oh, okay, that's fair. And it's a little over 2 hours.
A little bit over 2 hours, so it's a nice solid chunk of time.
Do we have any questions from the box?
Over the years, there's been much discussion of whether the Haunted Mansion movie should be more comedic or scary. What was the movie more of, and do you think it did it well?
I think this movie was definitely more comedic. I always associate the ride as being a little bit more scary, especially some of the attic scenes and the initial confrontation with the ghosts.
I would agree with that. I actually had thought perhaps it would be more scary. And understanding, right? I'm a 50-something and, boo. But it's not even that. It just was funny. There were a lot of little one-liners and little quips. But the theme overall to me was pretty serious. There was some talk of death and, beyond, spirits beyond. So
well, and we talked a lot about grief in October Sky. This movie brings up grief in a very adult way, how it lingers.
Correct. It's not, sounds terrible, one and done. Okay, moving on. It didn't have that feel to it. It had the respect that it deserved and what it would feel like to be someone in a grieving cycle or someone grieving.
It also drove a fair amount of the emotional plot going on too, and the development of the characters in this film.
Well, and part of the comedic value, and we had talked about it with the Cocoon Cast team, is part of the humor was they didn't do product placement per se, but they named products where they were from. And at first you think, wow, well, they're getting sponsored. Of course, it's a Disney Haunted Mansion movie.
There was a couple moments where I was convinced that they were getting money off of this.
Well, and the first time I thought, oh, that's hokey. And then the second time, your dad kind of nudged me and said, hey, that's kind of funny. They kind of threw that in. And then they did it a few more times and a few more times. And at that point, they can't be that oblivious. And then it was like, okay, now it's just kind of this running gag, and you
it's
start
kind
to
of
look
like making fun of people who do get
correct. And so I think there
placement.
was definitely a comedic element that balanced it well.
Be very curious to see if this gets released with a director's commentary at some point.
Yes, that would be the one to watch.
If that was intentional and kind of spoofs other horror movies where this happens.
That's what I'm wondering, if that was the intention at that point. First time I didn't get, I thought, oh man, really? They're gonna, and then it was like, and then nudge next to me, and then I'm like, oh yes, right. So that was helpful,
especially considering the amount of product tie-ins with, say, Barbie.
Oh, shameless.
Oh my gosh.
Shameless. Apparently Mattel did not make an appearance in Haunted Mansion. It's that time for our moth rating. Flying. 1 to 5. Rebecca, what do you think? What's today?
I think today the Haunted Mansion deserves a 3. It's a nice family film, and it's a great bit of counter programming from the Barbenheimer onslaught.
Onslaught. Wow. Tell us how you really feel. Number one reason why you would give it a 3 moth rating.
It's well-rounded, and as I previously mentioned, it's a nice family-friendly film, so it's a bit more accessible than, say, some of the more mature themes of Barbie or Oppenheimer. So
okay.
I think it fits where it fits.
Mm-hmm.
Disney's had trouble other than the tremendous good luck with Pirates of the Caribbean adapting some of their more obscure properties.
Well, and I honestly, I was between a 3 and a 3.5 a moth, and I would say it's a solid 3 for me also, in the respect that I was interested in seeing it. It was better than I thought it would be. I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. It didn't drag on too long, meaning 2 hours was about the cap. The acting was good, but I just can't seem to move past the 3 at this point.
Yeah, I had initially walked into this theater prepared to give it a 2 moth rating.
Sure, no, I understood. Just based on the brief trailers, lack of, advertising, at least in our area, was pretty minimal. And it just had the potential to go so many different directions, and not all of them I think would have been engaging or interesting.
Even the structure of the advertising can sometimes tell you more about the movie than you'd like to know.
That is correct, and there were no spoilers in the trailer. If you've seen Barbie or Haunted Mansion and want to share or watch our review with a friend, head over to our companion channel, Cocoon Cast Clips, where we take this show and cut it up into bite-sized clips. Perfect when you're short on time or just want to share a snack-sized review with your cinema community.
It's that time in the show where we want to hear from you, our cinema community.
Each week, we give you 2 opportunities to send us a video. This week, we are looking for you to send a video where you answer the question, what is the first movie you remember seeing in the movie theater? Tell us how old you were, what the experience was like. We give you extra points for being very creative in your video.
Our second opportunity is for you to send in your review of next week's Retro Rewind, The Breakfast Club, which we will be reviewing next week. After you hear our review, we want to showcase your review for the cinema community.
For your clip, keep it to 60 seconds or less. Film it in landscape with good audio and no music. Then email it to us at hello@cocooncast.com. If you include your name and your mailing address, you will get a custom Cocoon Cast sticker pack mailed to you. That's right. You join the cinema community and we will send you a nice thank you. In addition to your video clips, we want to talk about the cool comments we have been receiving from you. First up, we have Tony Styles, who commented on our review of Oppenheimer. Here's what Tony had to say. Really good to hear that each minute of a 3-hour movie is warranted. Right now, that's the biggest hang-up for us not going to see it. My favorite Nolan movie is The Prestige. Love how it's more about the sacrifices each of the 2 main characters are willing to make in order to be the best rather than the actual reveal of the tricks. Solid episode. Looking forward to next week's review.
I totally agree with Tony. The Prestige is probably my favorite Christopher Nolan movie.
Wow.
But it's also my favorite Nolan Brothers movie. I feel like this is one of the movies that they really bring out the best in each other. And it's also just a really cool story talking about the consequences of our creative lives crashing into our personal lives.
Wow. No, and it's a really solid, and Tony is right. I'm sorry, Big Tony. Big Tony. That's solid. It is true. That's a lesser known Christopher Nolan movie. I'm thinking that would be a great retro rewind for our cinema community if you haven't seen it. If you have, maybe comment below. What is Tony thinking about? Is that smart or what? Because I agree with that. And I do think that Oppenheimer's big hurdle for some people can be the 3 hours.
This is one of those movies where I believe that the 3-hour runtime is not a disservice to the movie. It gives the movie space to breathe.
And it truly, the pause of the 3 hours, I totally respect that, and it makes sense to me. However, I do think by going to it, you will be rewarded with a good movie, and if you like Christopher Nolan, which it sounds like Big Tony does, it sounds like he will enjoy the movie.
Tony, you'll have to comment and tell us what you think of it when you see it.
Absolutely, because we're trusting Tony will now go see the movie and comment below to tell us what he thinks. Okay, next up we have, looks like Disney One Nerd commented on our review of Mission Impossible and A Night and Day that we reviewed just a few weeks ago. And here's what she said. She said, love your podcast. Thank you, Disney Nerd. Especially your retro rewind and, of course, highlighting the Disney movies.
Well, it's nice that Disney's made so many movies that we can talk about.
Absolutely. And I think Disney Nerd will be very happy with this week's review. We are doing Disney's Haunted Mansion and the retro rewind. We try most weeks to have a retro rewind because we know there's some great movies out there in the cinema, but we also know there's some great movies that you can watch at home with your cinema community.
That's true. And there's people like my grandpa that they only go to the movies once a year, but that doesn't mean that they don't have an active cinema community that they can share experiences with at home, as Teresa was pointing out.
Correct. So thank you. Thank you, Disney Nerd. Keep watching. More Disney movies will surely be coming your way. And finally, we have Stephen, it looks like Stephen Hansen. And
Harson.
I'm sorry. Sorry, Stephen. So Stephen Harson, 9911. Commented on our Mission Impossible short. He said, I just watched it. One heartbreaking thing is confirmed. Rebecca Ferguson Ilsa Faust character is dead and is becoming a corpse on the Venice Bridge. Oh my.
Ooh, spoilers.
Well, maybe. Maybe.
Yeah, no, I have a theory that she might not be as dead as she looks. But yeah, this Mission Impossible definitely knows how to tug at your emotions.
Well, and it's not the end of the end of the end. This is what he's saying. Is it true? Is it not true? Do people stay dead? Do people actually die?
We'll have to see in part 2.
Well, exactly. This is part 1. Hang on. Come on, Steven. Part 2 is coming.
If you're video shy, maybe send us a picture. We'd love to see you standing outside your favorite movie theater with your cinema community. Also, be sure to tell us who you are and what movie you're trying to see so you can show our community your cinema spirit.
We want to showcase our cinema community videos and pictures next week. Be sure to send them in by Wednesday at 9 p.m. Pacific time for a chance to be on the show. And now it's time for some Hollywood news. Rebecca.
Strike? What strike? Well, it turns out that there's some projects that aren't halted by the strike. In fact, they're getting a SAG-AFTRA waiver.
Wow. So there's actually a waiver. Okay, so who's reporting that there are actually waivers that are floating about?
Jonah Valdez of the LA Times confirmed that there's over 100 projects at this point that have these waivers.
Wow. Let's talk about that, Rebecca. Tell me a little bit more about the waivers and what constitutes a waiver.
So a waiver is literally a piece of paper from SAG-AFTRA saying you're cool to keep going because it's an independent production. Now, independent in this case means that it does not receive any major financing from the studios that are being targeted by the strike.
So they're not actually crossing a picket line.
No, and that's also, you bring up a fair point. That's also important because that means that the union members that will be participating in these productions will not be cited nor considered scabbing.
And that's a huge thing because unity is a big part of this.
Huge part of this.
And they've been on strike for 2 weeks. Does that sound about right?
As of our taping this Friday, SAG-AFTRA is on strike for 2 weeks.
Okay. It feels longer, but probably because more people are getting involved. And
we also have the WGA strike going on at the same time, too.
Oh, that's true.
So I imagine that's kind of adding to some strike fatigue in the minds of the general public.
Sure. And the companies that are involved at this point, Netflix, Warner Brothers, Discovery.
Basically, if you're a streaming service, your butt is on the line for this.
Yes, so technically you are on strike at this point.
The sole exception that I can think of to this, not including a waiver, is the Actors Equity Union co-productions that we discussed last week for HBO, like House of the Dragon, Dune Sisterhood.
Right. Rebecca, we're talking about people not wanting to cross the picket line, but maybe falling under the exception.
That's correct.
How would they find out if they fell under that?
You want to email SAG-AFTRA strike at sagaftra.org. A representative should reach out to you and give your production a number and tell you whether you're permitted to strike or not against it.
Do we have any questions from the box?
Should all productions be halted so the strike is fair, or should we just be targeting the big boys and let the little people keep working?
Wow, that's a loaded question from the box. Tell us how you really feel, hot guy in the box.
I don't think it's fair to hurt the little guy, but the problem is people aren't going to listen if there's a waiver system in place.
Well, and that's what it feels like to me. It feels and I think that's a good point. Who wants to punish the little guy who's like going, hey, I'm just trying to finish. But at the same time, it can feel...
To me, it feels like they're creating a loophole.
It feels loophole-y.
And Sarah Silverman brought this up with a social media post earlier today.
Okay.
Pointing out that there's a real disparity.
Disparity is a good word. Also, loophole also fits.
That it feels like certain productions are more privileged than others, that they keep being able to continue.
That's a rough one.
Even if these productions have already said, we will agree to whatever terms SAG-AFTRA comes up with so they can continue, it just feels like a loophole so the big guys can keep getting content at the expense of the little guy.
Well, and that's a great question. Is the waiver helping them by helping them, right? The bigger, greater them.
Well, it's the Association of Movie Theater Owners and Producers that is mainly being striked against. And that's where you have things like Comcast, you have things like NBC Universal, Paramount Plus, Netflix.
Correct. So that's questionable at that point. So I'm mixed on the whole waiver.
Well, to quote Bob Odenkirk, a strike is a strike. Strike.
Exactly. Bob Odenkirk gets it. Well, and it will hopefully come to a quicker resolve if there's greater solidarity and no loopholes. Rebecca, let's transition a little bit to a little bit lighter, a little bit fluffier, not Barbie pink fluffy, but just some positive news. Zach Sheriff from Variety talks about Oppenheimer, which we reviewed last week. Encourage you to watch our review. Encourage you to go see the movie. We're encouraging Big Tony to go see the movie. And it had one of our favorite people, Robert Downey Jr.
That's correct. He's one of your favorite people, too.
One of my favorite people. I love Robert Downey Jr. And the article was talking about Cillian Murphy, who played Robert Oppenheimer in Christopher Nolan's latest movie. Robert Downey Jr. had such high praise for Murphy. He had talked about Christopher Nolan's movie was shot in 57 days.
It's nuts.
I thought that was crazy,
especially
too.
Considering the technical aspects you have to get right to sell this movie as the experience it is.
Well, and that's what grabbed my attention, because it started with Robert Downey Jr. talking about what Murphy had done and what a great actor he was. And there was a part where he said, again, 57 days, they're trying really hard to move through this movie. And he said there was a 3-day weekend in the middle of their filming, and all the actors and actresses says, hey, we're going to go out for, dinner. We're going to do some things. You want to join us? And Cillian Murphy said, no. He goes, I can't. And ask why he said he couldn't.
I think I know the answer, but why didn't he say?
So there's a scene in Oppenheimer, and again, not a spoiler, but there's a part where Oppenheimer speaks Dutch. And he said, no, I can't. I have to learn 30,000 Dutch words over the weekend, but have a really nice time. He was really pleasant about it. He was, oh, no, I really need to do this. Obviously, that's huge. And Emily Blunt, I mean, all of his co-actors and actresses are just huge fans of him. Emily Blunt said he did not come down for dinner because they had dinner together as a community or, as a cast every night. And he said no, because he was so wanting to make sure he knew his lines, make sure he was locked into that persona. And you think, oh, well, somebody's going to be mad. And Florence Pugh, she's so cute. She's like, he's one of the most incredible actors. She's like, oh, I've been watching him forever. I've been wanting to work with him. And she said he was one of the best actors that she's worked with, one of the most professional of men that she's worked with.
It's so nice to see Cillian get a spotlight for something
Absolutely.
Other than 28 Days Later and other than Disco Pigs.
Well, he's a fabulous actor.
Oh, yeah. No, everything I watch Cillian, and I am just like blown away. I'm just really excited to see Cillian getting this larger spotlight for his work.
Absolutely.
Even works like Breakfast on Pluto. I'm just blown away with just the intensity that he puts into his roles. And it's almost like he leaves none of himself, but you find him through his characters.
No, I agree. He's done some phenomenal one for Nolan, right? Batman, when he was Scarecrow. I mean, that was spooky. and for him to play Oppenheimer, not so spooky, however, equally as intense. They said he lost weight for this role, which if you've seen him before, you can see he's a bit thinner. And they asked him how much you lose. He won't tell him. He's I don't know. But he doesn't, there's not like a boastful, well, I lost this much weight for the movie. But clearly he's much thinner. And you think about 57 days, that's pretty tight schedule. And for him to say, no, I need to focus on what I'm doing in here. And to his coworkers' credit, no one's saying, oh my goodness, he doesn't like us. What a jerk. He's so standoffish. They're like, what a professional. And Robert Downey Jr., the most sacrificial. that he's seen in his career. And to me, that's saying something really positive about him.
I also want to point out, because of the SAG-AFTRA strike, SAG-AFTRA members are not allowed to promote their own projects. So this interview was taken before this. How wonderful is it that it's going to be almost the last word on Cillian's abilities for a long time is his fellow cast members are saying,
Yes.
we respect and admire this man.
And to me, that's always such a great thing, because we watch him in the movie and we say, oh, what a great guy, or what a great or performance, right? We don't know. But to hear other people close to him, and you always hope, right? You always hope that the person that you see on screen is that person outside, meaning treats his family well, he's a good guy. You know, maybe it's me, but I always believe the best, hope for the best. And to hear other coworkers saying, you're absolutely really great at this, meaning we respect your acting abilities, but we respect you as a person and being professional. I just think, what high praise.
I would be absolutely shocked if he does not get an Oscar nomination
I
for
would
this.
100% agree with that, and I hope he does. I truly do. Well, and I think the other part, too, that I noticed was, does that change how I see the movie? Do I see it differently? Because obviously we're reading this after the fact. Do I see it differently? And for me, it just reminds me how hard acting is. Producing, directing, everything that goes into these movies, we talk about how much we like, or, you know, some of the things we're like, I'm not sure about that. But to really recognize how hard this is for them, it just allows me to enjoy the performance just a little bit more, hearing for over the 3 days, which unbelievable. And I'm sure he had understood some of the Dutch piece prior, but to refresh or to learn a little bit more in over a 3-day period tells me that's a commitment, not only for his own integrity, but a commitment to the people like you and I and our cinema community that will go see Oppenheimer.
It's also a commitment to his team.
Correct. That's a great statement. I agree with that.
Daniel Radcliffe, at one point, it said that because he's Harry Potter, when he walks onto a set as Harry Potter in a Harry Potter movie, he sets the tone. He takes responsibility for what the tone is going to be. And I can see Cillian doing that.
Yes.
And it shouldn't be news that actors do this sort of thing, but it's nice to see, instead of the snipping and infighting that usually you hear about on Hollywood press tours. Wink, wink, don't worry, darling. We see a press tour where people are getting along.
Correct. And respect and mutual respect. So I believe that was an important story to hear. Thank you for joining us this week. We're always excited to create experiences to help bring our cinema community together.
Next week, we're excited to be reviewing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and on our Retro Rewind, The Breakfast Club.
Please remember to like, subscribe, and to share our channel.
If you enjoyed this show, you might check out last week where we reviewed Oppenheimer and October Sky.
Remember, cinema community, movies are
Better together.
Thanks for watching. See you next week.